Hey everyone, so it's been a while since I did some videos on my travel planning process. I think the last time that I did it was in 2019, and then prior to that it was 2016. So I know we have a lot more subscribers than we did back then, so it's probably time to do them again. So thank you to everybody who has joined since that time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link to all those videos. I believe there are 8 of them that you can go and you can watch. And it'll go through probably a little bit more detail than I'm going to go through today. Because what I'm going to do here is we're just going to kind of give you an overview of my planning process, and then you can go back and look at those other videos for details. Now, along with those videos that I'm going to link to, you can go out to my website, livingofftheslab.com, and I have 4 membership levels that you can join, and you get access to different things that again relate to planning and so forth. So I've got a free level, and here's what you get in the free level, right? You get 5 tips for creating epic road trips as a downloadable PDF. You get a PDF for packing for a motorcycle trip, and then you get access to my Traveling by Motorcycle ebook that I wrote some years ago, but it talks about the process and things that I did while I was still working to start creating the life that I really wanted of traveling around the country. So you can go out and get that. Now there are also 3 paid levels as well. There's a $2 a month level that I call the Travelers Club Basic, and along with those things that I just talked about, you also get access to 23 videos that cover the planning process for Kevin and I taking the Mother Road Tour back in 2022. So again, you get access to all that, and you can go through each one of those and see what we did, right, to plan that trip. Now there's also a $5 a month level I call the Travelers Club Journeyman, right? And along with that, you get access to the Creating Epics Road Trip downloadable PDF. And again, it kind of walks you through some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and then does it in a little bit more detail. Right? You also get access to my So You Want to Ride to Alaska online course. And again, this walks through the whole process of planning for Alaska, practicing riding adventure bikes, what we learned along the way, and some debriefs, right, that we had afterwards. So again, you get access to all that stuff. Now, if you want to join the Travelers Club Pro, then that's a $10 a month level, right? Then you get access to, again, all of that stuff, plus you get the Creating Epics Road Trip online course. Right, now it goes into a lot more detail about exactly how I use MRA Route Planner and other tools to create all of my routes. Right, so again, that's a very detailed course. You get access to that. Now you also get access to all of my GPX files that I've used over the course of time. Everything that I have created, I'm putting out there for my Travelers Club Pro members. I still have a couple of trips that I'm going to be getting out right this year, right, this winter. So again, if you want access to those, join Travelers Club Pro. So now that we've gone through all of that stuff, I've let you know where you can get extra information. Let's go through the basic process that I go through every time that I create a trip. And I think it's still pretty much the same as it was in 2016. So the first thing that I do is I start creating the big picture. And to do that, what I decide is where I want to go. For example, right now I'm working on a trip heading back up to Alaska. So I know I'm going to be running from Boston all the way up to Alaska, and then of course back home again. So again, that's the big idea. So what I do is I pull up my MRA route planning tool, and I put a waypoint here in Boston and then up in Alaska, and it draws a route for me. It gives me the basic idea of how far it's going to be. 6,000 odd miles to get up to Anchorage. Right, so then I can say, okay, how long is this going to take? Right, and for me, right? I want to do this in segments of about 300 miles a day, right? So I divide that 7,000 by 300 and I end up with 21 days to get up there. Now I'm also going to be wanting to take a few days off, probably one a week. So we're going to end up with 23, 24 days that it's going to take to get up there. All right, so that's how I start. Again, get the big picture, get the big idea of what it is that I want to accomplish, and I get an idea of basically how long it's going to take. Now, since I am retired, right, then time really isn't a big concern for me. I just figure out how many days it's going to take, and as far as time, it takes what it takes. But when you're still working, and when I was still working and we went to Alaska the first time, then we had to factor in that I only had 5 weeks to do it in. Peter and Stephen, who went with me, only had 3 weeks to do it in. So again, we had to figure out what we could ride every day, right, and still meet our goals. So now, using an example of 5,000 mile trip, let's say I have 2 weeks to do it in. Well, if I divide 5,000 by 14, then I need to travel 357 miles on average per day in order to be able to complete this trip. Now, as I said earlier, I typically want to take some days off. So if I'm going to take a couple of days off, one a week, right, doing this 5,000 mile trip, that means I'm only going to be doing it in 12 days. So that comes out to be about 417 miles a day that I need to average. So at this point, we need to sit back and take a look and say, okay, is this something that I can do? Right? Is this something that I can get on my bike and ride 417 miles a day? Do I like that kind of riding? Right? We also have to think about the kind of roads that we want to be riding on. Is it going to be back roads or is it going to be interstate? 417 miles on the interstate, not that big of a deal. But on back roads, well, that can make for a pretty long day, again, depending upon the roads. Right, so again, you need to think about these things, again, as you're starting to plan this trip. Some other things that you need to think about, right, those also include, are you going to be riding with somebody else? Do I need to get them involved in this planning process? Is their idea of the trip going to be the same as what my idea is? Right? We have to find something that's going to work for both of us, or maybe there's more than two of you. Right? Also, you need to start thinking about whether you want to stay at hotels or you want to stay camping, or maybe do a mix of the two. Right? Because that is going to, again, determine sometimes the roads that you want to take. Right? If you're going to be camping, you got to go look for campgrounds, and maybe they're off in a little more remote areas. Right? So again, you got to bring all of those things into the equation. When you're camping, you also have to think about setup time and breakdown and packing time in the morning, and also cooking time. So again, all those things need to start factoring in to your overall plan for this trip. So while you're thinking about all these things and you're kind of getting an idea of what this trip might look like, well, you also need to start doing your research. Right? You need to research great roads that you might want to ride and places that you want to see. So you can do that by, one, zooming in and looking at a map and looking at the nature of the road and seeing if you can find national parks or national monuments or other cool things to see along the way. So that's part of it. Also, you may want to get on Google and Google great roads in Kansas, right? Are there any great roads in Kansas? I'm sure there are, but you'll need to Google them and find them. Maybe talk to some people in some forums on what they've done as they've ridden through Kansas. Because I know riding through on the interstate isn't that exciting, but there are some great back roads. I've done it. I had a really good time riding through Kansas. So again, you can do those things and get information about the areas that you're going to be riding in. All right, so now as you're doing your research, well, you're going to be thinking about moving this route around a little bit, right? Because up to this point, in this route that I'm talking about, going from Boston to Anchorage, we just have whatever the GPS has told us to do. But that's not what we want to take, right? We want to go out and find some great back roads and see those cool things that we've been researching. So we're going to start moving the route around, putting waypoints at all those places that we want to see, and reshaping this route. And again, for now, I'm going to keep it as one big route going from Boston to Anchorage. And we're going to drag that around and go to the basic places that we want to go to. Now that's going to change the distance, so that's going to mean that you have to recalculate a little bit. And then you have to decide, okay, can I still do this? Do I need to make some changes? Maybe I can't go here, but I really want to go here. So all of that, again, will go into ultimately creating the route and the trip that you want. So ultimately what I'm going to do is work through this process and reshape this route, going to all these places I want to see. And then once I've done it, now what I need to do is I need to start breaking it up into individual days, or at least that's what I do. I don't leave with just one big route that I'm going to follow every day. I break it up into individual days. So if I'm going from Boston to Anchorage, it's going to take me 23 days. Then I'm going to break that up into 23 individual routes. And the reason I do this is because that allows me to be much more detailed about each individual day. I can have many more waypoints, right, within that individual day than I could if I just had one huge long route, right? And again, I can be much more detailed about, what I need to mark, right, within each one of those individual segments and make sure that I stay on the track that I want to take. Now in the end, what I'm going to end up with, as I said, is 23 individual segments going from point A to point B. Right, and I'm going to name each of those segments accordingly by the order that I'm going to use them. Like for example, my first day when I leave from Boston to head up to Anchorage is going to be to head to Burlington, Vermont. So I'm going to name that file 001 Burlington. Right, this way it's going to be in alphabetical order and appear right at the top for me. All right, 001, that's the first route that I need to use. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to name each one of these individual segments just like that. 002, 003, 004, again with the name of the city wherever I'm going to end up. Again, that's just my naming convention and it works extremely well for me. Now, in order to split up this big route, I use some tools that are available to me in MRA Route Planner. They have a split function that works really great, very easy. But if you don't have that in your particular application that you like to use, well, you can still go through this process manually. It just takes a little bit, more tweaking on your part, but it is absolutely doable. Now, as I'm going through this process of splitting things up, so I'm finding a start location, I'm finding an end location. And that end location, at least for me, for the most part, is going to be a hotel. So I can then go in and I can research that area that I'm going to be ending in, right? And I'm typically trying to do it in 300-mile chunks, right? So I'm going to find that place that's about 300 miles away, a city, a town that has a hotel in it, right, where I'm going to want to stay. And I can zoom in, I can use Google Maps, I can use satellite view, and I can do my research on the areas that I'm going to be staying in. And primarily what I'm looking for is, of course, a hotel to stay at, but also food in the area. I want to know what's available to eat. And in particular, if I can find a place to stay that is within walking distance of something great to eat, then that is perfect. Because when I get into the hotel every night, I want to take a shower, put my street clothes on, and then walk and find some food. I don't want to get my gear back on just to go out to eat. So ideally for me, I'm going to do my research and I'm going to find all of those places again as I'm going through splitting up this route into individual segments. So now after I've split this big route up into individual segments and I've done my outward route and my return route, remember I got to get back home again. All right, so I've done both of these things. I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going to start, where I'm going to end each day. All right, now what I can do is go in and take each one of those segments and put them into a spreadsheet. All right, and what I do is I track the day that I'm going to be traveling. each one of these segments. I track the start location, the end location, the miles for the day, right? I then log the hotel that I'm going to be staying at. Either I'm going to book ahead, or this is the one that I'm going to shoot for when I get into town, and I'm going to put down how much it's going to cost me. Right? Because then this is going to allow me to use this spreadsheet, right, to create a budget. Right? I can get my total mileage for the trip. Right? I then can figure out, based upon the miles per gallon that my bike averages and what I think the average cost of fuel is going to be, and figure out what my total, again, cost is going to be for gasoline. Right? I also then can take the total hotel costs, again, total them up, again, so I know what that's going to be. And then I can also, based upon the number of days that are in the travel that I'm going to be doing, I can know how much I'm going to need for food. For me, I typically budget $50 to $60 a day. Try to stay on the 50 side if I can. So that's typically get a hotel that maybe has some kind of breakfast in it, so I don't have to buy anything there. I then get a lunch, maybe that costs $20, and then a dinner, maybe $30. And again, those are not outrageous prices for today's food bill, so I can very easily spend that kind of money traveling on a day-to-day basis. At least if you want to eat well, right, which I do. All right, so again, I can use this itinerary to create that budget so I know exactly how much this trip is going to cost me. So once I have this itinerary created and I've used it for a budget, well, then I can know how much money I need to save, or do I have this money in savings, or do I need to go out and get a job to pay for this, right? So we can know all these things based upon creating this budget, right? Also, it's a quick place to look, right? If you have a question about where you're going to be in a couple of days or what hotel you're headed for, well, you can look for it right here in this spreadsheet. And also I can give a copy to my wife, and she knows exactly where I'm going to be, and it makes her much happier. So after I've created this itinerary, I'm almost ready to go, but I generally take at least one more pass through all of the GPX files. Right? I make sure that I've got the hotel where I want to start, the hotel where I want to end, right? And I've got the route that I want to take. I've got enough waypoints to keep me on that route. So I go through and I tweak anything that I need to tweak. And honestly, I do this as many times as I need to get it right. But eventually I'm going to think, okay, we're all set. All right, and then I'm going to export my GPX files to my GPS device. And typically what I do is I put an SD card in my GPS, so that way I have more storage space. But also, if anything goes wrong, well, then I can have a backup of those files, right? I usually carry an extra SD card with those files on it. And also, since I use MyRoute Planner, it's online and I can always recreate them again. So I always have these backups. Now, has it ever gone wrong with me? Has the SD card gone bad? No, but it's still a possibility, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. All right, so now let's go back a little bit and talk more about research, right? I touched on it. I touched on using Google Maps to find hotels and find places to eat and find places to go and see, right? But you can also do some Googling, do some searches, right, for great roads in whatever area you're going to be riding at, or great places to see, in whatever area you're going to be riding through. Right, you can do this, and that'll help you to, again, find all these locations and shape your route and shape your trip. Now, along with using Google as a tool to do these searches, I also use Butler Maps. Right, I have some physical Butler maps that I use for given areas, the area where I live in, for example. Right, but I also have a subscription to Rever. Rever allows you to access the Butler Maps overlay, right, and give you all these color-coded, researched roads for motorcyclists, right? We know these are great roads because other bikers have gotten out there and ridden them. So I use Rever solely for that purpose. I use MyRoute Planner to actually create my routes but I go and I research roads, and then I create the routes on MRA Route Planner based upon what I see on River, right? Find those great roads. So I really like to maintain my subscription, for that purpose alone. It's a great tool to use. All right, so I think we've gone through all of it. That's pretty much the process that I use for creating the plans for my trips, right? And what I leave with, my GPX files and my itinerary. Right, now, the reason I go through all this, and I know it sounds like a lot, right, if you're just listening to me, but really it's not that big of a deal, right, to go through all this stuff. And I personally find it to be a lot of fun, right? I'm learning about the areas that I'm going to be traveling, and I'm finding these great roads, and I have never been disappointed when I've done this kind of research to find great roads. I have been when I just kind of leave it up to chance, right? Because I think that what ends up happening if we just kind of head out there is we usually take the easy path, right? Yeah, this looks like a good road. I know it goes in the direction I'm headed, so we'll just stick with that. But there's this other one that goes up over the mountain. I don't know anything about it. Yeah, I think I'll just stick with this one. At least that's what I see happening quite a bit. But if you get on tools like MRA Route Planner and any of the other tools out there, Google Maps and so forth, and you really look for these things, you do your research, you can find some really cool hidden gems out there. So that's why I do all this stuff. I want to create the trip that I want, right? I'm not going to leave it to the fates to create my trip. I'm in charge, right? So I'm going to create this trip. And for those of you who thinks that planning removes adventure, it's a bunch of bunk. I'm sorry, right? There are always things that are going to surprise you, the things that you need to roll with the flow to overcome. I mean, just take a look at my BMW videos. But anyway, the choice is obviously yours. Plan, don't plan, do what brings you joy. But for me, again, this is part of creating and manifesting the ride, the adventure that I want, right? Personally, that's what I like. That's what gives me joy. All right, guys, ride safe.